Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She comes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, October 19th. LA Galaxy getting ready for the final game of 2023. They may be out of it. Dallas still very much in the hunt, and so can the Galaxy play spoilers? And do you want the Galaxy to play spoilers? Is it going to make you angry if the Galaxy suddenly learn how to beat a team they haven't beaten in a little while? What are your feelings about this whole wrapping up of the season a little earlier than everything else, too? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get you through RSL because I wasn't here, and then I was back, and I didn't have a show on Monday, so we'll talk about RSL a little bit, just touch on a couple things here and there. That type of thing. I have tickets to give away, so go tell everybody on Twitter that we're giving away free tickets because I forgot to tell them. But go do that, and then we'll get you ready for this Dallas game as well. Also, you'll find out who I voted for as well. So sounds like it'll be fun for everybody here as we close out the 2023 season. And to help me do all that, we're glad to have him back. It's Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira. Eric, how's it going, bud?
Oh, it's going well. I think that's the furthest along in the intro song that we've gotten before I've been introduced. You really did miss a show. You had a lot to catch up on that intro, a lot to cover. And, the grand finale. Is this the season finale? Is this what we call this COG episode? Everything else is bonus content?
There usually is like a wrap-up at the very, backside of everything. And I think we'll get there. Now, I will tell you, LA Galaxy have exit interviews scheduled for Monday. All right, so something that hasn't happened in a while is going to happen, which is nice. So we'll get to talk to some players, and I know the list of people that are sort of on that list, and I think I'm going to be able to join via Skype or via Zoom, so I should be able to also participate in exit interviews, which is always nice, but it's a long list. I imagine it's going to take us a couple hours to get through everybody. Okay.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I was like, don't they always have exit interviews between the coach and the staff, or the coach and the players?
Yes.
But the media is not always necessarily involved in that.
Yeah, usually they have like their final outro from the coaching staff, right? Yeah, you have, and it wouldn't surprise me, by the way, if they've already had some of those conversations, because I mean, what
else is there to say?
You're like, what else? We're going to do this. Greg Vanny did talk today a little bit. There's nothing super noteworthy of it. I'll give you injury updates right now. Mark Delgado's still dealing with concussion symptoms, and there's no reason to have him come back and play. So he's not going to be playing in this game, so call him out. Outside of all the other season-ending injuries that you already know of course. Ricky Puig trained fully with the team, apparently. Greg said he looked fine. He said Ricky really wants to participate in the last game. He wants to be part of the team. He's like missing that, and he wants to end the season in front of the fans and not on the sidelines. There's still a good possibility he won't play just because Greg says it's going to be health and safety. First and above everything else, that's like there's no need for him to really play. So unless he's really fit, really ready to go, and maybe he participates very lightly, maybe he comes in for the last 10 minutes of a game or something like that. Yeah. That could be something as well.
The only thing I could think of is when he did have that injury in Austin, he played through the entire game. So, if he was able to get through that game, obviously he took, games off since then. Maybe it's believable that if they were making a push for the playoffs, that he would play in this game. Yeah. So I think, to your point, it's just a matter of protecting your investment and not pushing it and hoping for further injury. Respect to him for wanting to, finish out the season in front of the fans and not miss that opportunity. It could be very easy for him to just wrap it up. But respect to him for kind of saying he wants to go, what is it, down on his shield there, with his shield. So he's ready to go. So, respect to Ricky there. But again, it's kind of a weird thing. Do we want Ricky to play? Do we not want Ricky to play? Like, it's one of those things.
I would like to see
wouldn't
him.
mind seeing him.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him show like a final curtain call that I think he deserves that for the season that he's had. And just maybe he needs to just be super careful and not push it. If it hurts him, take him off the field, or maybe he just comes in for a spell at the end. We'll see where it goes. So I think it'd be nice for the fans to see him and give some closure, a final goodbye before we get into Galaxy 2024, which we do have our first super chat. Shout out to Jonathan Prince, who says, "Is it okay to be Galaxy 2024 now?"
Yeah.
And I think it is. I think we're safe.
You think this was the line, right? It's sort of like, yeah, I think we're good now. I think we can pull that off. I'll tell you, Greg Vanney today talking about the offseason and just how important this next season is, and obviously everybody knows that. I know I often downplay sort of the hot seat for Greg Vanney. I think that's unfair. I think there will be a hot seat. I think there is pressure. I think he knows there's already pressure on there. I think this offseason has already started as far as it started a while ago, before the Galaxy were even eliminated. I know that people have had conversations, that they're talking, then that they're looking at things. Greg Vanney says, we have to really determine what we're looking for, how we're going to go about and get that. And he is adamant, jumping up and down as big as he can, and he's already calling it. He says, I want everybody in camp, in country. I want their visas cleared. I want them part of the preseason. We will not be starting this, and I think I'm adding this part, but we're not going to be starting this next season slow. We're going to have everybody together before this season starts.
At Coachella.
They're going to be there for the invitational, like all that. He is calling it out right now. It was interesting because Damian Calhoun was talking to him as well. And before we get to RSL, we can sort of dive into this, but he was talking to him as well because Damian asked about depth, and he goes, and I think he's right about this. I don't think this is a reach for him. He goes, at parts of this year, I felt like we were really developing depth. I felt like, it was really starting to happen. He goes, and then we got injured and more injuries and more. He goes, the biggest thing I need to have happen for 2024 is everybody gets healthy because, ultimately, I think that's what keeps the LA Galaxy out of the playoffs. I did have somebody who disagreed with me and said that the transition defense was so bad. Perhaps there is no playoffs even if everybody's healthy, which was evident in the RSL game again, giving up goals in transition or not getting set in time, all those things. So there's work to be done. I don't think that's a doubt. Greg said it would not be a rebuilding year. He goes, I don't want to use that word. That's fair. And they
have pieces. Look at the depth that they brought in, and you need big pieces, but I wouldn't call it a rebuild. You're going to need to bring in game changers. in that regard. But you don't need 8 new roster. I think when Vanney first took over the helm, you saw 13 new players. I don't think you're going to see that level of thing. I think 4 or 5 new starters.
Right.
And I think we're dancing.
The other part is 17 of, I think, 34 players are up for some sort of movement. And now I expect that you're going to see a lot of those guys come back, right? And so you're not all 17 are going. No, you're not going to get rid of 17 players. That's going to happen. Could you lose 7? Yeah. Could you lose 10? Maybe. But again, look what impact that actually has on the starting lineup and who are you bringing back. Brugman's coming back. I don't know about Caligari. That's such an interesting situation to be in. And I know that that salary info came out, and we can certainly talk about how the LA Galaxy, among one of, I think, 4 of the top 5 teams, basically, and 5 of the top 6 spending teams didn't make the playoffs, which is super interesting. Whenever you want to break down analytics. I didn't have a chance to analyze all that as I got back. I got back late Tuesday night. I barely got to work on Wednesday and then Thursday. I can't even believe today. It feels like it's Saturday already, but it's only Thursday, and I have to go to work again tomorrow. So, we'll see if we'll see how that sort of goes and if I can get back on that. But I would remind everybody, we normally do shows in the off season, so there will be plenty of time to talk about all that. And the fact they released the numbers so late this year is weird.
It does feel like it was later than usual.
It is. Usually it's September. Like once the roster
and it's
freeze.
Interesting. It says as of September, but they weren't available to look at today. So this information, whatever they pulled it from, was from a September date. But that's not necessarily when we got to see it. It was on September. We got to see it a month later.
And the September date is the roster freeze, which is why they're using as of September, right? The whole deal. So so you're sort of able to look at those. So we can go in and we can look at diagnostics. We can do it. I have what I believe is the first ever complete roster with contract information for the LA Galaxy. I have everybody's contract every
We
year.
did
We did it. We did it, Joe.
We did it. We finally did it.
We did it, Joe. I published that on Twitter. If you saw it, it was probably on the Discord as well. So if you want to see that, that's out there. We can go over that in the off season as well. Here's what I think is going to happen in the off season. I think that we're going to come back for, I think possibly no show on Monday. Kevin has to travel and do some stuff, and I don't know that we need to have quick reaction to whatever happens on Dallas.
It's not going to be breaking. Yeah.
Right.
There's not a quick turnaround after the game. Yeah.
Right. And we are angling to have Greg Vanney join us next Thursday. I'll tell you. And that's, if that happens, that's great. And if it doesn't happen, then we'll keep going and he will join us sometime in the off season when we do it. But usually,
does that mean I have to go back to back to back?
I think
keep my streak alive.
I mean, I don't know. Or the reason that he's dodging is
ducking
because of you.
He's ducking you. He's heard rumors. Yeah.
That's
He's heard rumblings. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have some of that stuff is going to be interesting, but we want to have Greg on and whatever capacity that is, we'll get to ask him questions and do all that fun stuff. So that's sort of where we're at in this offseason. I do imagine there will be like a 2-week break where I don't do any shows as well because I don't want to.
The holidays.
Yeah.
It'll be the holidays. We don't want to do the depression of watching another team lift MLS Cup. There's a whole psychological effect to that, or maybe you do, but yeah, you deserved a few weeks off, a few shows off.
Can I tell you something?
Trim it down.
Can I tell you something I do want to do? I was thinking about it today. I want to do a live show of some sort, right? And I'm sort of trying to figure out how to do it. And Taps, which is just they went bankrupt. Everybody, all the Taps went bankrupt, so that's not a thing anymore. I kind of want to do like a dinner where we get together, we have dinner,
formal
and then
hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah, bow ties.
Bow ties, that type of thing. Hand-passed hors d'oeuvres. I like this.
And we go and we say, and then at some point we go up and we can talk about the Galaxy. We could do stuff. I would hope that I would have some special guests that would join us and we could talk to them a little bit while we're eating dinner. By the way, if it's at a brewery with food, that sounds like a really good dinner to me, like that type of thing. But I sort of
keep it simple, food trucks,
right? I sort of want to do this, this stuff, that type of thing. I sort of want to do. There was the Angels once. My mom's a big Angels fan, so I hear the Angels once did a thing where the general manager had a dinner, and you went to the dinner, and then while you were eating, he talked about the team and like this, and he had special guests, and it was sort of like this is what's going on. And I always thought that's a really good way to sort of be like, hey, this is what's going on with the LA Galaxy, and here's the special guest. To come talk to you about it. We can talk to them. Maybe we get Kevin Hartman back out because Kevin's a big fan of the podcast. We always like having him out. So
I would say this feels like you need like a lounge singer. You need a musical act to close it all out. I like where this is going.
Right. I Blink 182. That's off the top of my head. That's where I'm thinking.
I think they're available.
Yeah. It might be. They might be. So yeah, sort of do something. An end of season banquet like we used to have in high school. That was good. Yeah. Good call. Good call.
I was going to say, is Knott's Berry Farm the chicken dinner restaurant? Is that available?
Right.
That's usually where we had ours. Yeah.
Oh, you were close enough that had worked. We never did that. We had like it's some crappy pizza place usually.
Oh no, that was the spot. And then it was usually Knott's Berry Farm. It's not under lock and key. It's at least back in the day. So you used to be able to sneak on, get a few rides, and then go back and finish up your banquet. That was the way to do it. Oh, what a time to be alive!
What a
the
time!
Glory days.
The glory days, indeed. It was interesting. I had to go back to, and I think I told everybody, but if you didn't know, I was in. I got to go to Washington D.C., which is one of my favorite cities in the whole world. So I love going back there. And then Virginia and Maryland. So I was in Virginia, Maryland, DC. I could see West Virginia at one point from where I was. Like it was right over there. So I was sort of in that up in those areas, up in Leesburg and stuff like that. And I will say that I enjoyed it immensely. We were back there for a funeral, so that was not the enjoyment part. Although I think that's a good way to bring people together and you get a chance to mourn losses and all that stuff. So there is some healing that is involved with that, and so it's part of the process. I'm okay with that. So we went back and did that. My son went back with us, and he thought it was first of all, he thinks traveling on airplanes is like everyday thing. He's like, oh yeah, that's cool, whatever, the whole deal.
No big deal. Yeah.
But we landed in DC, and from all my DC peeps, who I love, we landed in DC, and usually when I land in DC, I'm all like, oh, it's so hot. Or, oh, it's so cold. That's the only really experience. I landed, it was like 73, 74 degrees, a light breeze. It was nicer than like Newport Beach on the it was perfect. And I was like, this is what it's all about. And I was just soaking in the sun. And the next day it was 55 degrees, windy and raining. So, I enjoyed the fall.
Weather comes at you fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was Daniel goes, I wouldn't mind attending the funeral of the Galaxy. Well, you are.
This is essentially what this is. And to your point, funerals, I have this conversation, unfortunately, with cousins. It's like, why do we only get together at weddings and funerals? Like, we enjoy hanging out. We enjoy these conversations. It's just unfortunate that the circumstances that you usually get together. And you're right, there is a healing and there's a part to that. So to say it's fun to go to funerals is in poor taste, but it is nice to connect with, family members and see them and provide closure and reminisce and all those.
It's an important part of the cycle, I think.
A healthy thing to do.
So everybody.
So welcome to the LA Galaxy funeral.
Yeah, that's why I'm wearing black. Also, I've adopted these V-neck, like a short sleeve black shirt as my uniform. If you see me wearing it all the time, I have like 6 of these shirts, so I do wash on a regular basis.
That's a smart move. Yeah, you pull the Mr. Rogers, right?
I'm just, I'm like Steve Jobs. It worked for Steve Jobs, right? He wore the same thing every time, right? So it doesn't really matter.
You don't have to think. You know. I like how you phrase it. It's the uniform. I know what I'm doing.
I know where I'm going. So I've been doing that. So that's personal life stuff. Other personal life stuff. If you have kiddos, if you would like to come ride trains this weekend, we have our Halloween ride. I have been working now for the last 3 weeks on a Halloween decoration piece that involves fake dynamite, a skeleton, and a lot of fake crates of things. So
the 3D printer's been hard at work. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I can tell you how to make fake dynamite. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. All right. These are props. I need to say this. We're gonna get demonetized, like for all this stuff. But it's all fake. It's really cool. There's some fun stuff. So anyway, we have that going on 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at Fairview Park. OCMEtrains.org for that. But come on out. I'll be out there. Usually I'm out there for the entire time, and then I have to hurry up and get park the trains, and then run up to the game on Saturday. I told my wife not to judge our relationship on Saturday because it's not going to be pretty.
It's not going to be a fun one.
No, it's not. I'm going to be gone for most of the time. So,
and I will say, take Josh up on the offer. If you haven't been to the little trains, it is a trip. It's a lot of fun. I think my mom's the #1 fan. She's like, "Can we go see Josh in those trains again? Those cute little trains." So if you haven't gone, check it out. It's a fun time, and I imagine during Halloween it's probably even more festive and fun.
Well, I mean, we're Nightmare Before Christmasing it this year. That's the main station theme. Just in case you were wondering where we're.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it is for children too.
Right.
You're not going to have.
It's not scary.
Haunted hayride. Yeah,
it's
scared straight.
It's fun. All right, it's fun Halloween, not scary Halloween. So that's what we got. But yeah, so I want to do something in the off season. That's on my mind. We'll make sure that happens. I'm shooting maybe for something in November. We'll see if that ends up sort of taking some boxes. We can do something. Maybe it's in December. Maybe it's in January. We're going to figure it out, and then we'll put it down, and then you guys, we can all get together and do it. So that's sort of where we're at. By the way, somebody said we could reserve the big room at Dave & Buster's, and I don't hate the Dave & Buster's idea even one little iota, right? I mean, that's a place.
That idea has been floated around before. So yeah, that's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea at all. So
I also like the Elks Lodge. Yeah, I feel like we all wear the little hats. Yeah.
Can I tell you something? So you grew up here, so I think that you and I have a similar experience. Even though you got to go to Knott's Berry Farm, I never got to do that. Whenever my wife and I were getting married, her mom goes, "Hey, we're saying, oh, we're gonna have to try to find a place, right?" And so her mom goes, "Hey, why don't you guys get married at a fire station?" Right? And I'm like, is that a thing? Like, there's no.
Oh, you'd be surprised how many places you can get married. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but the reason she said that is because back east, the fire stations have like full on event centers on like the back side of those things. This is a way for them to like make money and do stuff. I'm not talking about like small banquet rooms here, dude. I'm talking about like
it's a rec center essentially.
It is like there's a giant room. It's got fireplaces and wood. It's made for these event centers. And I was like, oh, that's funny because there's nothing like that out here. And I saw some of those whenever I was back east. My wife was like, yeah, that one right there. That's where we used to have our prom. I'm like, well, you had like 12 kids and indoor plumbing. That was really exciting for you guys. So, anyway, that's what we got.
Well, this is where I get to flex again.
Yes.
I got to have my banquet at Knott's Berry Farm, and then I got to have my prom at the Long Beach Aquarium, underneath the giant whale. That's, living in Southern California, you get some pretty kick-ass options. So shout out to Southern California. I miss you.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's saying, let me know. We'll be there. Lasso asks, is it like the train at Irvine Park? It's way more exciting than the train at Irvine Park. Our train can fall off the tracks. There's never.
Yeah, you're not in danger of falling off in Irvine. Here, you never know. You got to hold on tight.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. All right, RSL. 2-2 draw in this game.
LA Galaxy. That's what
we're talking. We Eric and I were going to turn this into like where we mess with scammers because we've both been dealing with people who have been texting us. I don't know if I think everybody's sort of been.
It's one of those like
wave.
I don't want to say it out loud because it's like, am I compromising like websites that I visit or something. That's the reason why stuff like this is happening. But yeah, the scam text, I don't know if that's a recent thing, but I'm glad, it's not just me, that there are other people,
right.
Who are experiencing these things. So yeah, we're not here to, so if you want to drop your credit card number or,
right.
the back of Google Play Store,
right.
if you want to type that code in the chat, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, just take a picture of the gift card and put that in there. No, I mean, it's crazy. So we thought that was going to be the main theme of tonight. Apparently it's just, we don't want to talk about the Galaxy, but let's talk about the Galaxy. RSL 2, LA Galaxy 2. Galaxy scored first in this game, scored the first 2 goals, winning 2-0. In classic Galaxy fashion, give up a goal right before halftime and then give up one in the second half. That makes it 2-2, so the Galaxy draw. I will say the offensive creativity from the LA Galaxy was far and away one of the better highlights, I think, of the year.
Yeah.
Just some really well-worked goals. When you look at Joveljic and just the pass from Vieira and just pulling back and everybody's on the same page. The fact that you had, Sharp and Joveljic starting up top again and you sort of got that run out and that they were making it work as well, I think is the important part, because we have tried this. We have seen this over and over and again where they have tried to put the 2 forwards up top and it has not worked because guys haven't been on the same page. I thought it was really interesting that the best play of the night, the pass that Billy Sharp hit to Joveljic, and Joveljic one-timed it over to Costa and Costa was able to score.
Yeah,
that was
goal of the night. Yeah.
The spacing, the foresight into what was going to happen. Joveljic hit it first time. Like, there was never, it unlocked the defense so wide that you put Douglas Costa in on a wide open net. And when you look at Costa's impact sort of in this game, it makes you wonder, what if Douglas Costa could have been this effective throughout the entire year? I think the Galaxy have a chance of making the playoffs. They're not missing it by that much whenever it all comes down to 2 or 3 games in one direction probably puts the LA Galaxy in something. But when you look at, and we've been looking at the DPs, Eric, the bottom line is their non-participation probably keeps the LA Galaxy out of this. Yeah. Caligari's injury probably keeps the LA Galaxy. Brugman's injury keeps it. Caceres' injury. I mean, none of these were small injuries, and the fact that they were all season-ending really puts a hurt on this LA Galaxy team.
And it's funny, the one that often gets overlooked that you didn't mention was the Chicharito injury, because he wasn't performing well at the beginning. But when you think about, he didn't need to have 20 goals for this to be a success. If he had 8 goals, 10 goals, 12 goals, does that make him put the Galaxy in better position? And I think it does. And so Chicharito being gone, I think it's easy to say, well, he wasn't playing well, he was causing problems, or not causing problems, but he wasn't getting it done in terms of the scoring. I think over time that may have worked itself out. Interesting observation. You mentioned kind of the first half and how Joveljic was, dishing it off and playing well. That's my observation that I took away from this. Joveljic, I don't know if it's because, he hasn't been scoring and he was maybe looking if directions were specifically given to him, but it felt like he wanted to defer more often than not in that game. And I think in previous matches, we've seen him try to, dribble and take players on, and that's not really his strong suit, or, be a little bit more selfish and kick the ball into a defender and not have that luck. So it seemed like he was trying to work with the other attackers. He was deferring to Billy Sharp. He was deferring to Douglas Costa. And I don't know if that's a hint of, if the Galaxy do go and backfill that striker position, that if he wants time on the field, right, he's going to need to be more of the, assist guy or the playmaker setting up the goal scorer. And I think that was an interesting wrinkle that I saw from Joveljic that I hadn't really seen previous this season. And I enjoyed it. It was a tale of two halves, because after the first half, we said this with the Minnesota game, they didn't have enough horses. It all fell apart right after that. And it felt like great opening half, and you just didn't have the horses to close out that game. There are draws where we kick ourselves, like that's a draw that could have been a win. Right. This was a draw that could have, we're probably lucky not to lose. RSL hit a post. They were kind of really attacking and pushing hard towards the end. The Galaxy were frustrated, could not get RSL, prevent them from attacking towards the end of that match. But to the Galaxy's credit, in that first half, they probably could have had, 1 or 2 more goals. It could have been iced 3-0, even 4-1, 4-2 towards the end of it. But unfortunately, they weren't able to make those chances, which, that's the LA Galaxy this season.
Yeah, it feels that way. McMath made a great save too. That would have been 3-0 for the Galaxy, and but you mentioned the crossbar on the other side and everything else. Again, it's very simple math for the LA Galaxy. They do the same things over and over again, and you sort of see it as allowing goals before half. I don't know how many stoppage time first half goals the Galaxy allowed this year. I'm sure you could go back and count them. My guess it would be 5 or 6. Off the top of my head, I think I can think of 3, and it feels like it probably happened more than that.
I think the line being set at 5 is probably correct.
Yeah,
And
right.
then,
So
it's going to be in that neighborhood.
Right in that neighborhood of things. And that's 5 games really it's a totally different game, and people will probably discount this. It's a totally different game if you go into the half up 2-0 than 2-1 or other things, right? It's a lot further to come back. It's funny, just by seconds. It's a lot further to come back and score 2 goals in the second half than it is to score 1 goal in the second half, right? And have the momentum that you're already going into the halftime at. And the Galaxy lose momentum at the halftime so many times. But I agree with you. I think it came down to the horses. It came down to the minutes, and they don't have the stamina to be able to do it. So if you're going to beat teams like Dallas, if you're going to come in and try to steal these games at the end of the season right now, score a lot of goals in that first half and then hold on. That's it.
Bunker down.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is the highlight looking back as that game kind of fell apart was the Siggy tribute. So I wanted to give that a shout out and give respect to MLS. All right, notice I can't say, Apple, because apparently Apple's not the one who does it. It's MLS who does it. But for airing that, because I think for people watching at home, it's easy to go to commercial break and go to halftime analysis. But I think they recognize that Siggy was an important part of MLS, not just the LA Galaxy. So I think it was important to show that ceremony at halftime. So big kudos for whoever made that decision to make sure that they aired that halftime ceremony. Because for those of us who can't be there, I really enjoyed watching his family out on the field and Joe Totino kind of giving the breakdown. So big kudos for them for airing that during the broadcast.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't get to watch any of the live, and I didn't get to watch the whole game. I've been able to watch highlights and do that. So really interesting to just watch the LA Galaxy and sort of what they tried to do in this game. You look at the expected goals in this game, and it shows that it probably should have been a tie, right? I mean, ultimately, you look at it, Galaxy had 16 shots at 20 shots for RSL, 7 shots at 6 shots on target, 2.3, 2.1 on the expected goals. There's not a lot of surprises in here. I just really enjoyed the precision in which the Galaxy scored in the first half and sort of how they played. And could you have more stuff like that in the future? And could you have something next year that's like that? Remember, I think it's highly unlikely that Douglas Costa comes back in any sort of way. And as a matter of fact, his agent was talking and saying a whole bunch of stuff and basically, saying, oh, well, he can, his ability to come in or go out of the LA Galaxy sort of expires at 12/31. We're like, yeah, duh, that's when his contract's up. There's a lot of stuff.
That's how that works, right?
Yeah. And it seemed like he was hinting that Douglas Costa had the ability at some point to join a team in Brazil should it have popped up. And I think that when we go back to the beginning of the season, we saw Douglas Costa basically shopping his wares at every Brazilian team that would listen. And I even got to ask Greg Vanny, I said, Douglas Costa's down here. Do you know that he's down here doing this? And yes. And Greg said, yes, we know what he's doing, and we expect that he's going to be back with us, but the whole deal. But it was very clear to me at the time that the Galaxy said, if you can find somebody to take you, you can leave, right?
Like you are free to leave. You are free to move about the country. Yeah.
Right. And that's why we didn't know whether or not Costa was even going to, remember, he was injured through most of the preseason too. He didn't play a lot. He didn't show up. I don't think he was at at Coachella a whole bunch.
We didn't have any wingers to start the season.
That's right.
It's kind of crazy, how the season ended up. But I'm just personally glad that we can stop having this conversation.
Right.
Is Doug going to do it? Is he not going to do it? We've had some arguments, some back and forths on, is he a good player? Is he not a good player? And he's shown that he has talent. He's obviously a good player, but it's the consistency. You can't make that gamble. We saw what happened with Chicharito. There's even, rumblings or, Chicharito kind of trying to show his, if you're a believer in his Instagram and his comeback story, it seems like he's working out, trying to get to full fitness. Rumblings about him possibly landing somewhere. I don't think there's a spot for him on the LA Galaxy next season. I don't think there's a spot for Douglas Costa, and that's saying, thank you for your contributions, but it is time to walk away from both of those players.
Yeah, I think Javi and Douglas Costa, I think they're both gone, and some people are interested. It's fan appreciation night. Chicharito is a big part of fan appreciation. Shouldn't he be there? And he should be there. I don't think he will be. And I don't know. I didn't ask, right? So this is just speculation. I don't think he'll be there. I think he's turned the page. You know why? Because I think it's very clear in the writings on the wall that the LA Galaxy are not inviting him back next year, right? That's not happening. I don't think there's another contract that came out. If there ever was a contract, again, we'd have to play the game with, would Chicharito accept TAM money? And then look at who else you would have. You're probably going to have Billy Sharp back next year. I would imagine you would, as a matter of fact, that Billy Sharp comes back. You're going to have Dejan Joveljic, who is still under contract for, I think, another couple of years. So Joveljic is probably back unless you want to move him, and that's your choice, right? So Joveljic is back, and then you're probably going to go out and get a DP striker. So you're going to have a DP striker, Joveljic, and Sharp. So where does Chicharito coming in
from Greg Vanney, who likes to play one forward system?
Right, you're going to have
one
three.
striker system.
Yeah, you're going to have three. You're going to have three. They could also go out and not get a striker. I think that would be a mistake because I think we saw that when there was no production from that number 9, right, that the LA Galaxy struggled. Now, funny enough, Eric, the Galaxy...
I was going to say, I have this stat ready. We're on the same wavelength. Go for it.
Is that the LA Galaxy, in terms of scoring goals, is actually going to be in a pretty average position. They scored a ton of goals down the stretch. And it's kind of... to me, it's a little shocking. I'm trying to find, I have the one, here it is. Here's the one that I wanted to pull up, but this is all of the games and I sort of highlight where it is. But if you look, I mean, really down the stretch, the LA Galaxy shut out in their 25th game was a 0-0 game. Was that the Portland game or a Colorado game? I think might have been Colorado.
I think was it Kansas City?
It may have been Kansas City. I can't remember. It's the 25th game in the whole thing. And then they scored 2 goals, 4 goals, 3 goals, 3 goals, 1 goal, 2 goals. They end up with 50 goals. And 50 goals is actually respectable for what you would see from an LA Galaxy team. I'm trying to say, LA Galaxy goals scored. They scored 50 goals in 2021.
Yeah,
right?
I actually broke it down because I was looking at FC Dallas, looking ahead, and I'm like, how is this team still in the hunt? Looking at their form guide, just the amount of draws that they have and losses. They were like the LA Galaxy. They didn't put more than 2 wins together. I was like, how is FC Dallas still in the hunt and the Galaxy are not? It must be, goals scored. And I went and looked at it, and you're right, that 50 goals scored is top 10 in the league. If you look throughout the league,
nuts.
It's top 4 in the West. And so that's crazy. They were scoring the goals as much as we were saying the striker was the issue.
Right.
They got a lot of goals from a lot of different people, or a little bit of goals from a lot of people.
But all in the second half. This was all in the second. They didn't score crap at the start the year, right? All their shutouts and everything came through, and they were getting killed on the defense. And it was like, the whole deal. But
and then losing 4-2s and 3-2s.
Yeah,
and that's where it got them. They were dead last in goals conceded.
Yep.
And it's not close. You look at a team like Toronto. Toronto would need to concede 6 goals on decision day to tie us one with goals against. So that's how bad the Galaxy defense was in terms of goals allowed. Is it a backline problem? I don't know. But there's definitely a problem with the defense and the goalkeeper if you're letting in the most goals in the entire league. And that's the difference maker. It's not as much as we know that the striker is the piece that they need. Defensively, it was not good enough this season. So tweaks or changes need to be made. And part of that you do, put up to injuries that happened, and there were a lot of starters. There wasn't consistent starters, tons of injuries, and I think that created it. So if you can get healthy, consistent center backs, I think that's going to make a huge difference because whatever was happening this season, it was not good enough. And in terms of depth throughout the lineup, I think was helpful for the Galaxy, but I think the depth they brought in at center back showed that they were not good in those spots that they were given. So, maybe alternative, if you look at who are players that are going to be part of that 17 who you're okay with parting ways, I think looking for alternative, defenders might be the way to go.
Yeah, I will say Greg Vanney certainly listed it up to just having a consistent lineup, and there wasn't one. And the thing that I think we always have to remember, and I'm in agreement with this whenever I hear this said, is that defense is a system thing. It's not necessarily individuals. And certainly when you have individuals who are really good, they really help out your system, and so that can help you. But when you look at what really killed the LA Galaxy was whenever Mark Delgado, I think, got hurt. And his ability not to protect the back line and sort of be that last defense. We talk about
Brugman as well. Yeah,
and Brugman, right? We talk about transition defense. And by the way, the LA Galaxy, if they give up 4 goals to FC Dallas, would tie their worst ever goals allowed, which was 2017 whenever they had 67. So they have to give up 4. They gave up 64 goals in 2018, 59 in 2019. 2020 doesn't count because it was a short year. But that was actually, and if I remember correctly, when you go look at it, if you extrapolate it out, that's a massive number that they were going to allow in 2020.
Sure.
54 goals in 2021, 51 goals in 2022, and then then 63 goals now this season, and anything else that adds on top of that. So again, 4 more goals would tie. If Dallas scores 4, it would tie the worst ever. If Dallas scores 5 goals, which Minnesota just did not too long ago, then it would be the worst ever season of conceding goals for the LA Galaxy. So that's something to sort of keep your eye on as we look forward to. And as we predicted out, right, 51.5 goals is what they're expected to score. So add another 1.5 goals for this next game. So 1 to 2 goals is what you probably expect. And then ending this all out at about 65 goals. So they're saying, 1 more goal is sort of in there. Technically speaking, my thing here, if I'm reading it correctly, Eric, is telling me that the Galaxy win this game. Because if I'm looking at goals,
saying they're due.
Right?
Are you doing your roulette thing again?
Yeah, exactly. I don't. I'm sort of putting things together and doing that. Here's the 2020. They were goals against was 71.1 when you extrapolated it out. So the 71 would have been the worst ever, right?
Yeah.
And they only scored 42 goals in 2020 if you extrapolated it out. So there's some things there in 2020. We've talked about it before, but 2020, if you project things out, could have been worse than 2017 whenever you look at the worst season ever. But right now, 2017 still holds all the records pretty much for the worst team ever.
Which the interesting thing is my eyeballs with that 2020 team, like that to me was the worst product I've seen on the field.
It was
bad.
That
some of those games in 2020 it was just downright embarrassing to watch that team. I felt embarrassed for those players out on the field with how bad they looked in 2020. To me, 2017, and this is going to be almost more insulting. 2017, it feels like the players were trying, they just weren't good enough.
Right.
2020, it just felt like they were not trying and they were not good enough. It was bad news all the way around.
Yeah, Chicharito. Remember Chicharito not playing,
that was
injured, and everything else
that was
going
mess.
on. It was a mess. GBS got fired. Right. It was COVID. So it was one of those things that certainly didn't go well for the LA Galaxy. If we're looking at other stats that I can sort of cherry pick out of here. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, no, I don't want to talk about that yet. Not about Fan Appreciation Day. I have records for that. We can talk about that. Just looking at the record percent table, I always do the winning percentage. 24.2% is just atrocious. 2017 was 23.5%, just to give you an idea. The losing percent is 39.4. In 2017, it was 52.9. So again, 2017 was a really bad year. You're right, Eric. I mean, with a lot of things, we're pretty bad. 2020, 54.5% losing, 27.3% winning percentage. I always look at the points. This is sort of the difference this year. The 60.6% of either draw or win is actually an okay stat. It's just that most of those were draws and not wins, right? And so it doesn't make you feel better. That's a great number whenever most of those are wins and some of those are draws, right? That's not a great number whenever most of them are draws.
The funny thing is, I specifically remember during the GBS era is he had like 2 draws on a season or something like that. I was like, where are the draws? Where's the grinding out of the games? It seems like he either went all out and they won the game, or they fell apart, in late in games, and there was no middle ground. And this is kind of proving the opposite. Is when you have a bunch of draws, it actually should be a good thing. But that beginning of the season, I keep circling back to that. And the win streak of it all, not being able to put together 3 or 4 games in a row, that's killer. You have to be able to, you have to have, 1 or 2 streaks throughout your season if you want to, make the playoffs and have an impact. And they just, that just was not part of this Galaxy team or any Greg Vanney Galaxy team since he's joined, which is crazy to say.
The opposite is also true though. The most games the LA Galaxy have ever lost in a row is 3. That's it. That's it. Most under Greg Vanney,
a lot of
3.
unbeaten and winless.
Yes,
all the fun with words things that we like.
I think
to do,
7 and 9 is the is. Let's see here. We can go through them. Here's the win streak is 2, right? And it's been 2 every year under Greg Vanney as they can win 2 games in a row. But not the 3rd. The longest single season unbeaten streak is now at 7. That was this year, 7 games unbeaten. But again, not a lot of wins, right? It's like, where are the wins? Show me the wins. The longest single season losing streak for the LA Galaxy, 3, all under Greg Vanney for those. And then the longest winless streak is 7. So 7 winless streaks, 7 unbeaten streak. So it's very symmetrical, which kind of looks, if you look at the record's actually more or less symmetrical whenever you look at losses and draws and stuff like that. It's too flat. You need peaks on the wins, and you're not getting any peaks on the wins. Yeah. Certainly. I thought, looking at the record in terms of the LA Galaxy scoring first, or allowing the first goal.
That was massive. Yeah, no comebacks really.
18 times the LA Galaxy went down to allow the first goal. 18 times. They're 0, 12, and 6 when that happens. They did not win a single game, and only 6 times out of 18 games did they get points crazy from it.
And the funny thing with that particular stat is that you think, well, then when the other team scored, but they fought back in those games. So they had opportunities.
Yep.
That's the crazy thing going back to like the eyeball test of it all. Because you look at that and you say, well, whenever they concede first, they let the game get away from them. But that's not necessarily true. It just usually worked out. In some of those games, they even came back and had a lead.
Yep.
And then, it came down to a draw or they ended up losing that game. So it's kind of, it's almost deceiving that that's not quite how it played out. But at the end of the day, it is how it played out. So the stat is going to look terrible, and it all comes down to conceding goals. 63 goals is not conceding 63 goals is not going to get you there.
Yeah. I think the other side of this, the flip side of it, is that the RSL game they score first, Eric, and then they end up not winning the game. It's only the second time that really happens, or excuse me, the third time that it happens. They had 8-1-2 right now whenever they score the first goal, and the draw came against RSL, a draw against San Jose, whenever they scored first, and then the team that they're playing coming up on Saturday, Dallas, where they scored. This was the very first game of the season.
First, yeah.
They scored first and then allowed 3 goals and lost 3-1. Right, so that was the only loss all season that the Galaxy had when scoring first. But it's just such a minuscule amount whenever you look at 34 games, that 18 of those, so more than half, you allow the first goal. That can't be sustainable, and it wasn't sustainable. Big surprise. It wasn't sustainable in that. And so that has to be a focus whenever you look at stuff that's sort of happening here from here on out. I did talk about DPs, and we talked about the DP times, right? 23.1% for Chicharito. You don't want that guy back. That's one of the reasons that he's not going to be showing up at Fan Appreciation Day. If he does, by the way, tip of the cap, he should.
I wouldn't boo him. I don't think you hold ill will to him for going out with a season-ending injury. I mean, you can, we could talk about front office and the contract, the way that was structured, where he didn't need that many goals to trigger that option that brought him back. That's a different discussion. After the 2020 season, I can understand being upset with him, but I think you saw a player who, after having a really low, showed a lot of effort and heart and passion for this LA Galaxy crest. And so I do think, it's his duty as a captain and as a leader to come out and kind of face the music. And even if he knows this is a farewell, I think there's something to that, to come out and clap up the fans and say thank you. Because I think he would get a warm reception if he came out. I don't think people would be upset. I don't know if I'm being Pollyanna or, being too optimistic on that, but I think, the fans would respect him for coming out and clapping them up. And I think, him coming out would say a lot, to his leadership qualities and kind of tying a bow on it. I think it'd be a very nice gesture if he showed up, but he hasn't really been, active in those games during his streak, or at least, not publicly. It's not super obvious that he's there. So again, I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't show up, but I do think it'd be a nice gesture.
Yeah. I mean, we see through the press box and stuff, or through the TV studio, like Gaston Brugman will come walking through, or Caceres will come walking through. I mean, those guys are there. Chicharito's not there. And that is what it is. I'm not going to say that that's good or bad or whatever it is, but it certainly feels like everybody's already separated, right? Like there's no more that needs to be done here. You're free to go and go do your thing. And people saying where else he's going to play. There will be offers for him to play somewhere, I'm sure.
Big time.
And he'll make more money than you can give him at $1.6 million in TAM, right? And so that's the same thing with Douglas Costa. You can say what you want, and people often think that like players are like this is their last stop. And who else would want them after this, and blah, 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 all this other stuff. People find places to go, and guess what? Usually the monies can even be a little bit better, right? Now, I'm not saying they're going to get $7 million, right? Yeah. He's not going to get, but he could get $4 million, or he could get $2.5 or $3 million. There's going to be money for Chicharito to play somewhere, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Here's all that you need to know. And speaking of the 2020 LA Galaxy, to bring this up at the Galaxy funeral, Rolf Feltscher found a place to land after his time with the LA Galaxy. So Chicharito will find a place to land after his time for the LA Galaxy, and so will Douglas Costa. There'll be teams, there's always going to be the speculation returning home to Mexico, Chivas de Guadalajara. That's going to be an option. I think there are other leagues around the world who, let's face facts, for the marketing alone is worth bringing him in. I don't know if you've watched the Beckham documentary yet, but they ask about why he was brought to Real Madrid, and Luis Figo's asking, I don't know why he brought him in because he doesn't, he plays my position. And then they cut to Florentino Perez, and he's like, he tripled our revenue. It's like, It's pretty straightforward why they brought him in. I think Chicharito, there are clubs who are going to be shrewd and look at it, and they're going to want to bring him in, if for nothing else, for the value that he could bring marketing wise.
What do you give? I mean, I know the chat room's sort of giving him a grade. What do you give him for his 3 years with the LA Galaxy? I mean, can you? I mean, I don't think it's kind. He was injured for most of it. Whenever he wasn't injured for a lot of it, he wasn't effective.
Yeah, if you average it out, the opening season was an F. I think his comeback season was an A, and I think everything in between was maybe a B that second season after, and then this year with the injury, you maybe give it a C or a D. I think it averages out to about a C, maybe a C minus over the course.
I think that's generous because I mean, yeah, you can say the one season, man,
the
he
golden
went off
boot
and
level C. Yeah,
I mean,
I think that. Yeah, I rate that high because that's what this team was missing this season.
Yeah, I mean, I would say D. I mean, you didn't get what you needed. I mean, Douglas Costa is in a worse boat.
I think it's worse. Yeah, I agree. Chicharito brought positivity. I think, and maybe I'm taking his personality into account with it. Like I wanted to root for Chicharito where maybe I didn't want to root for Douglas Costa as much. So I feel like I'd give him the benefit, Chicharito a little bit more and maybe do that C plus in that range because of the highs that he brought.
Right.
But it wasn't stellar, lights out for his entirety of the stretch. And I think that's where, you ask those questions. And Douglas Costa for this home stretch, these last 10, 12 games,
great.
A. Yeah. But, that's not, unfortunately, there's a whole, a whole 2-3 years, before that leads into it. So you can't solely grade them just on how they left off.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, yes, you could talk about off the field stuff. You could talk about a whole bunch of other things to sort of grade these, but just from on the field stuff, Chicharito gave it his all a lot. And so for the effort part alone, I think you maybe you round up, right? Maybe you bump him up a grade just because you're like, okay, at least for me, I could put him in as a C. But the bottom line is the impact wasn't there enough. It wasn't felt enough, not for $7 million a year over 3 years and everything else, right?
That's also the kicker for highest paid player in the league at one point.
Yeah.
It was not that level, which is, we'll talk about the salaries another day, but when you look at the players who are at the top of that list and they're maybe not the ones who are the game changers, it's kind of interesting, in terms of where the league is going.
Yeah, I look at Costa and say, like, incomplete. You didn't even show up. Like, it's hard to give you points for the most time when you didn't show up the whole time. Again, we'll come to this thing. 48.4% of the total minutes for designated players. 23.1% this season for Chicharito. 38% for Douglas Costa, who seems like he played a lot down the stretch, but didn't play at all.
That's not a lot. Yeah.
Ricky Puig,
38% is not a lot.
Ricky Puig had 84.2%. And he didn't play for like the last 3, 4, 5 games of the season, right? That's what you need from a designated player. And when you look at it, the 48.4% from the designated players is the lowest that I have since I've been keeping track. 50.7 would have been 2018. And again, you had Zlatan Ibrahimovic on a TAM contract and Ola Kamara on TAM contracts in 2018. Just to remind you of what 2018 was, you had, Giovanni Dos Santos, Jonathan Dos Santos, neither of which played very much of that season. And then you had Roman Alessandrini, who got injured, right? That was your DPs in 2018. And then you look at 2023, and the DP play was worse this year than it was in 2018. That's mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
And bottom line is you didn't have the TAM players that you had. I mean, if you had Zlatan on TAM on this team, then I think you're okay. But you don't. Okay, so you can't really even compare those.
Yeah, it's not a fair comparison.
No, it's not a fair comparison at all. So
the chat's also making me laugh with their where our grading scale. Gary said Costa's the student who doesn't study and gets a 77 on the test.
Yeah.
Or when he does try, and then Lasso's optimism, a couple A's on the test but no homework.
Right.
Those are all good ways, as an educator to describe what Costa brings. Obviously, the talent or the brains, if you're looking at a student, is in there, but they didn't show it all the time, and you can't give them full credit when they're not, nailing it 100% of the time. I would say up until this season, I'd say Douglas Costa was an absolute failure. It's an F, but then this last little stretch saved him, gave him a passing grade. So I'd give him a D. I'd bump him up to a D.
Right.
If we were giving grades here.
Right. And if you're at a community college and you're just looking to transfer the credit, then the D is fine. But if
is it good enough? 2 points. Yeah, it gets you there.
Yeah, it gets the credit transfers. You don't get a grade to the transfers with the credit transfers.
Maybe you retake it in the summer. Yeah, with a different professor.
Maybe you do
the
better.
Stat. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you do better. Right. The whole deal. So
not that I've ever done that. But
no, of course
that's
not.
A good strategy. Yeah.
No, of course not. Let's see other stats. I don't know. The goal differential is bad. Minus 13. 2020 it was minus 19. Again, in not 34 games. How bad was 2020? 2020 was bad. Here's the thing, though, and I saw it in the chat room. The eye test tells you that this team is one of the worst teams I've ever watched. They had skill sometimes. They were in games most of the time. We said that there were no blowouts. And then of course they get blown out by 5-2, right? And it was like really there weren't those games where you sat there and said, wow, they're just so overmatched. That so didn't happen.
And we were expecting it to. I think that's the crazy thing with the amount of injuries. Like when are the wheels gonna fall off of this, this train, to use your analogy? When is it going to come off the track? Yeah. And that's the crazy thing, and why I looked up, because I said, how is Dallas still in this? And let's look at their goal differential. They must have a lot of goals. They don't have a lot of goals. Dallas has, I think, 38, something like that in terms of goals scored. That's not a lot, but in terms of 37 goals for, 36 goals against. So they're at +1. But it's not a lot there. But the Galaxy were in a lot of these games, which was the crazy thing. We were waiting for them to get blown out and say, this is the game where it all falls apart. And it didn't. So credit to them for fighting. And I think for those of us who are not on the Vanny out train, that's your argument, is look at everything that happened. And this team was still set up in a way where they were still fighting and making, getting close to making things happen, and making, chicken salad out of chicken something else. I think that's where you got to give Vanny the credit. That whatever system was in place was able to hold its own in some regard to stay in these games. But the other side of the coin, the Hammer special, speaking out of both sides of my mouth, is conceding 63 goals. So obviously something was wrong where it wasn't necessarily working. And I think that goes to roster depth.
Yeah. And again, injuries to roster depth too, right? I think the Galaxy
that's what I mean by that.
Yeah. I think they're
not
probably
being able to fill that role.
I think their depth is probably okay. Is their depth able to cover for, the six injuries, really, the six major
for
injuries?
Half a season, for 18 games, can they cover for a 3-game stretch while a player, recovers from a minor injury?
Right.
Probably. But can they be your reliable backup starters for half a season? The answer, we found out what the answer to that is.
All right, we've been making people wait long enough. If you'd like to win tickets to the game on Saturday, what you can do is go ahead and email us, cornerofthegalaxy@gmail.com. You can tell me why you need the tickets. I'm not above flattery. This is not random. I will just pick things. I get to choose. This is
correct.
This is the kingdom of Josh gets to rule on your submissions to me, and I will grace you with tickets should I feel that you deserve them. So cornerofthegalaxy@gmail.com. And maybe sometimes even if you don't deserve it, maybe I'll just give tickets away that way.
Yeah.
It is not fair. There is no system. It is all up here in my head, and I go through and I read them, and I'm like, oh, I'm definitely giving those people tickets.
That's a good one.
Yep. I'm like, oh, I don't know why, but for some reason, this poorly worded one that is misspelled is the one I'm going to give tickets to right now.
It's a fun one.
Right. And as I said, I have 7 pairs of tickets right now to give away, possibly
That's
more.
That's a lot of tickets.
It's a lot of tickets.
Did they fall off the back of a bus? Or
yes, they did.
How did this happen? Yeah.
One shout out to listener Michael, one of our listeners, couldn't make the game, gave me the tickets, said, hey, I got 2 tickets. These are the good ones. I may save these ones for the really good. They're in section 108, so they're nice. They're the really good ones. I got other ones from other people, but the names were changed to protect the innocent. So we have that. So they just, I just gather, and then I distribute and I give. I just give, Eric, is really what I do.
You're a giver.
I'm a giver.
Even though it was been given to you.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate that you're honest.
Yes.
Some people say we're going to hold a random competition.
So
we're going to spin the wheel, and you're like, that felt like it was rigged.
Yeah.
No, we're telling you, it's rigged. It's
yeah.
up front. Send us your best scam story. How are you scammed out of something?
There you go. That's great.
And that's going to get you, your sob story. And how you bought a timeshare somewhere.
I hope people are messing with the scammers. I would like to waste as much time with people who try to scam me as possible. So that's always good. All right. The other thing I want to talk about, the LA Galaxy Academy U14s versus LAFC on 10/21. So this is on Saturday. Game kicks off at 3 p.m. at Cal State LA on the Southfield #2. Listener Javier has a son on this team and says, hey, this is going to be a big game, right? And so it's always fun. The cool thing about this one is it's the same day as the Galaxy game that starts at 6. So I know it might be tough for some of you to make it out there. Maybe you make it part of your day. You swing on by, you come on by Cal State LA, and then you come on down to the stadium afterwards and do that. You can make it that, or it is on Apple TV Plus because they're doing the MLS next game of the week, right?
That's very cool.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So you can watch.
Shout out to, again, Apple TV or MLS, whoever's making those decisions. I know there's a group of supporters sometimes that go out whenever they play those crosstown rivals to support the Baby G's. So it's always fun. And if it's available on Apple TV, I might check it out. Support the little guys out there, even though they're probably not that little at 14 years old.
Right.
Probably grown men and ready to start, in a couple seasons.
Yes.
But anytime you can support the Galaxy in a rivalry, it's a fun time. So exciting times if you're pulling the doubleheader.
It is. Mike Gray is in the chat room right now, which is always nice. He says, hey, just got back from Jalen's pitch opening. That was next on our list to talk about.
Segue. What a segue.
What a segue indeed. The LA Galaxy, and with the help, of course, of Jalen Neal and Herbalife and everybody else who puts all these together, did put a mini pitch in Lakewood. So if you've seen the mini pitches, they basically tennis courts with the goals. They're like more indoor type.
Yeah, they have some
facilities.
walls.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very
go ahead.
Very child friendly or park friendly.
It is, and one of the things that I know Jalen's mom Sarah was talking about was like his always sort of a dream was be able to give back and do something in Lakewood and be able to like support the community that he grew up in and all that type of thing. So this is awesome. I love this. This is one of my favorite parts of being associated with any soccer team or stuff like that is watching them go out, whether they're like painting stuff at an elementary school, which they do a lot of, the LA Galaxy Foundation and stuff like that. It's just fun to see this stuff happen and that it has an impact. And yes, it's PR, but there's real money being spent on this stuff. You don't do this for like no money. There's money being spent.
I have a friend who works, in city government, and he's like, man, because this truly was in the backyard from where I grew up. My first teaching job was in Hawaiian Gardens, right up Norwalk Boulevard, right next to Palms Park, where this mini pitch is. So This is literally the backyard, my old stomping ground. So to see it there, you can tell that the youth in that community, it's going to go to good use. People who enjoy soccer in that section of the city. So to see it go there, this is something that I always, to make it personal, going to parks and going onto tennis courts, going on to basketball courts. And there was never that place to play soccer. And now that these places are sprouting up, it's massive. And you could say what you will about the marketing and whatever you want. It's just a ploy putting Herbalife out there and LA Galaxy on there. But having the LA Galaxy crest in these communities where they're playing pickup soccer is massive. So big kudos to the Neal family, Jalen and his mother, for kind of making this push to make sure it happens, because that's massive. There's these kids who are looking for a place to play. They find this LA Galaxy mini pitch and they may, check out Jalen Neal's next game and follow his progression and become Galaxy fans. This is where those things start. So, this is a huge, massive thing. And the more, like you said, it's not free. It's not enough. It takes some efforts and some politicking to make it all work. But I think the payoff is worth it. And this is what you love to see, your club reaching out to the community and doing these types of things. So big shout out to the Neals and the LA Galaxy.
Yeah, it's so much fun. By the way, there's going to be like the humanitarian of the year type thing for the LA Galaxy. Jalen Neal wins that hands down as far as I'm concerned. I don't get a vote on that. I'm going to tell you about end of year voting here in just a second. But first, I wanted to update you on the fan council because the fan council did meet on Zoom for the very first time. You should know who those people are. There's 15 total members out of there. I think 14 to 15, I think, were on the call, according to people that I talked to about it. The interesting thing is who was there and attending from the LA Galaxy on the Zoom call: Dan Beckerman, Tom Braun, Oriel Martinez, Will Misselbrook, Jonathan Malter, all the people that, one, you would kind of expect, but two, they're really making a big deal about this fan council. If you talk to Tom Braun about it, he will talk to you about the fan council and sort of what's going on and how that's going. I know two people personally who are on the fan council. And so I'm sure that they'll be providing updates from them and from, and I'll share anything that I get asked to share as well in there. One of the things that is sort of coming up and that they're doing, if you're ever interested in fan council and possibly what it could be about, is they're doing a stadium tour before the Dallas game. They're doing a front office meet and greet before the Dallas game. And then they have their first in-person meeting, I think, at the beginning or the beginning of November. I think November 8th is whenever that's going to happen. So things starting to kick off as they move into that. So the off season is probably going to be full of the fan council updates, because I think the Galaxy are really sinking a lot of PR momentum into the fan council right now.
And I think it's much needed with the boycott that was happening. There were proposals that went back and forth on what the fans wanted to see moving forward, and the fan council, I believe, was one of those things that was that came out of those negotiations, for lack of a better term. And I think there were fans, rightfully so, who were hesitant to say, is this just lip service? This fan council's
could be
never really going to happen.
Right.
But to see that there is actually a group of people that they are meeting with, and I think it's cool that we're able to get some of that scoop. And I don't think I'm just going to get out in front of it, because it feels like there's murky waters there, and us, kind of reporting that out there. But I think that's part of the role of the fan council, is these people are fans. They're going to get the pulse of what the fans are thinking. So I think as a Galaxy podcast, getting that information out there, feeling the feedback and discussing it and kind of seeing where it's going, I think that's even stretches, the fan council, where it's not 12 people making a decision.
Right.
It's 12 people
15
all representing, or 15 people representing the community. And if they share these things and get those feelers out there, then they're not making those decisions in isolation, which I think is massive, for us to kind of relay that information. I think it's a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing, that it shouldn't be super secret meetings that no one knows what's going on, because then that's where you create a lot of issues. Having that transparency and kind of that flow of information, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying that eventually they won't have some surprises that are coming up that maybe they don't want everybody to know beforehand.
That's a different
I like
thing.
that. That's okay,
Yeah.
and maybe we'll abide by that. Maybe we won't. Who knows? We'll talk to people and do all the stuff that we normally do on this stuff. But I think it's important that you sort of understand that that's going on, and there are people out there, and that this is actually happening. So for me, I think that's positives for everybody. I know there's a lot of people who say, hey, maybe the Galaxy shouldn't be in charge of the fan council, that it should be the fans. I think that the Galaxy can be in charge of the fan council. The problem will come with the fan council is whenever things don't go well, whenever things are bad, and the fan council is sort of against whether or not that lives on, and that they continue the meetings and do it. Because really, it should be, stormy weather or calm weather. It shouldn't be happening.
An echo chamber.
Nope, It shouldn't be. So really interesting to see how that sort of goes. Now, end of year voting. Ever since I have been an accredited member.
Do you get a vote?
I do. Well, I get a vote for the LA Galaxy stuff. I never get a vote for MLS. MLS doesn't even know I exist. Longest running podcast probably in all of Major League Soccer, 15 years, almost 1,100 shows. They have no idea most of the time. They're like, what? There's some good guys who actually, like Andrew Wiebe and some of they do know who we are, right?
Yeah.
And that type of thing. But for the most part, they're like, why would Josh get a vote? Why would he do that? He's only been around for 15 years. So we did get to vote. We get to vote on Player of the Year. And by the way, we get to vote. We've been able to vote for Player of the Year and do everything except for the 1 year that I was around that they just ordained Giovanni Dos Santos, where Jelle Van Damme was about to win Defender of the Year and Player of the Year. First time it was ever going to happen.
Yeah,
that was going to happen, and they decided that they were going to take the Player of the Year voting away from the media, and they just gave it to Giovanni Dos Santos. They did it in a really smart way. They let the fans vote on it, and Giovanni Dos Santos has a much wider social media coverage than anybody else. So Giovanni Dos Santos won that Player of the Year. Never should have happened. Jelle Van Damme was by clear and far away the best player that year. So I always like to point that out because that they stole that one. They stole a credibility thing away from people.
And I will say that Giovanni Dos Santos, as much as he's disliked by a large portion of the fan base, that year that he did win it was one of his better seasons. So It's not like that was his injury year where he was a complete mess and a complete disaster. That was one of the years where he actually did put up some stats. So they can get away with it because it was somewhat believable. But I think from a fan perspective, and anyone who went to Galaxy games and watched it, they were super impressed with Jelle Van Damme having his breakout season with the Galaxy that year.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's where we're at. That's how we have things going on. So we get votes on Player of the Year, Defender of the Year. Which would you like to start with? We could start with Defender of the Year, or which one is the more contested one, do you think?
I think you get the one that it's pretty obvious. I think you get Player of the Year out of the way because to me it's a no-brainer. It's Ricky Puig. Yeah. It was. I'll give a shout out to La Cunha Galaxiana. That was on a podcast last night where they were talking about best player. It's like, well, who else gets like we can get cute and give like the hipster answers where, well, Brugman was really the backbone of the team. Without Brugman, and we can say things like that, but let's not get too cute. It was Ricky Puig by a mile.
So we get to vote for 3, and you always have to vote for 3. You have to have 3 players in there, and they always have 3 players in there. Now, I know some people have put the same person 3 times. That doesn't work either. That's not a valid. You just get the credit for the one because basically first place gets 3 points, second place gets 2 points. And that way, I mean, sometimes I've seen it be fluctuating enough where you watch a number 2 and maybe there's like guys who are split type thing. A number 2 win it whenever there were two other guys.
There's something with the Oscars, how that was once they opened it up to 10 films because of that point system. No one's number 1 ended up winning because it was everyone's number 3,
right?
But no one's number 1. But because of that, it ended up winning. Best picture when it wasn't necessarily, everyone's favorite film.
So it's very, I think the first 2 are easy. And I think the third one, you could sort of just toss up it as a coin in the air if you really wanted to. I had Ricky Puig as number 1. I had Tyler Boyd as number 2, because I thought Tyler with his assists and his goals and everything.
I think consistently, he needs to be rewarded for that consistency.
Yeah. And so I think to me, he's a clear number 2. For number 3, I put Caligari, and I'll tell you why, because he's my Defender of the Year. Caligari is. Okay. I thought out of everybody in consistency, and yes, he didn't play the whole year, and Jalen Neal would have been in that argument had he played more, and I would have loved to say that there were other guys in there, but tell me who else played really good defense this year for the whole year. Caligari was locked down on the right side. Sometimes you didn't even notice the dude was running back and forth and doing everything that he was doing. His injury, I think, really hurt the LA Galaxy and everything. So for me, and I'm sure somebody could say, oh, well, Mark Delgado wins Defender of the Year because whenever he tucked into the center, that really stopped the blah, blah, blah. Like, you could get cute with it if you really want to. For me, it was Caligari. And then I would say that the next one is, the crazy thing here is all 3 of these players are injured. All 3 of these players are injured for my defenders.
The ones who were on the field, these last few games, I wouldn't put as your votes for Defender of the Year. Right. So yeah, it would have to be
Caligari, Cáceres, and Neal. Is sort of how I think I would go that. And
I'd flip Neal and Cáceres. I could make an argument that Neal could be number 1 because of the story where he stole a starting spot where maybe he was in just, to backfill and he made that position his own. I think that's super impressive. Whereas someone like Caligari was brought in to be the starter and then he did his job. He did what he was supposed to do. Right. And so I think Neal, from a narrative perspective, you could almost argue that he was, your Defender of the Year for what he was able to do. So I think 1 and 2, you can argue that. And then the third one, I feel like Cáceres or Cáceres. Yeah. Are we going to play this game again where we keep messing his name up?
No, we're done because he's not coming back next year.
To throw him there.
Yeah.
I see Leerdam's name being popped in the chat because when he was in there, he played well, but I just don't think there was enough games pplayed from him.
When he was a center back, I thought he played well. When he's a right back, I thought he didn't play very well. Yeah, and so that's tough for me to sort of say, oh yeah, that's the guy, to sort of put in that. But I think Caligari for me is head and shoulders was the best defender for the most consistent. It just, unfortunately, the injury ended that run. So I don't have any. I'm sure somebody else will try to say. I thought about putting Jonathan Bond in there only because of something, but I don't think that I don't think he's earned it.
No, I don't think so either.
And so
63 goals allowed.
Yeah. Well, again, let's go back and see how many of those.
They
were
may not all
savable.
be his fault, but at the end,
see how many were savable.
You can't reward a player for that.
I am not one who will punish a goalkeeper for a defense that allows people to shoot from 2 yards out.
I will.
I'll
be that
that's
guy.
fine. Again, he didn't get in there. There will be a golden boot for the LA Galaxy. Who is tops for the? I mean, this isn't a votable thing.
It's right now. I believe it's Ricky Puig.
Is it Ricky? Did he score? No, I don't think.
I have this here. No, Terrence Boyd.
No,
Terrence Boyd. Right, Tyler Boyd.
Tyler Boyd.
I'm thinking of fantasy points here. Tyler Boyd 7 goals. Ricky Puig 7 goals in MLS play. I think there's an Open Cup goal that puts Boyd ahead, but that's not where you're measuring this.
Yeah,
they may count. Do they count that in terms of?
They may split
the whole season. Yeah. So unless Boyd scores, I think you could see it. Or if Joveljic gets 2 goals, maybe he can jump. He'd have 8. He has 6 right now. If he scores 2, he gets 8 goals, and he takes the Golden Boot. So that'd be kind of interesting. Billy Sharp also has 6. So if Sharp scores a couple goals, someone who played.
So the Golden Boot will be up for grabs whenever they
grabs.
play against Dallas. So that'll be fun to watch there as well. So that's just a strict numbers one. Whoever finishes on top, and then I believe if they tie, they split it. I think it's co. I don't think there's a tiebreaker in there, but maybe there is, and they'll tell me about it. So
you get half a boot.
There also will be a community works person as well. I expect that to be Jalen Neal. Just off the top of my head.
Given what we were just talking about, I think. That's an easy decision.
Remember when AJ was on the team and you were like, oh, it's AJ, right? AJ Delagarza. Yeah, oh, it's going to be AJ. And like that, this is one of those with Jalen, I think, is clear and far away, one of the guys. $2 super chat from Tim says, hey, guys, is Bond the starter next year? No. We'll see. He certainly is paid like the starter. I don't know if Mitrovic will be back. That's a loan deal that they have to work out. I would like to see Mitrovic back. I just don't know if that's going to be something that happens. I
was peeking at the salaries. Mitrovic's guaranteed compensation was really, really inexpensive. It was like in 63K or 68K, something like that. So if that's the salary, so I'm sorry to Jonathan Bond and Jonathan Klinsmann, but if the drop off isn't that huge, and if you can find other homes for those guys, then I think I don't think Bond is a guaranteed starter next year. I'll say that.
I think it's up for grabs.
I think the position is there'll be a competition for it. Yeah.
I will say that Bond gets paid like the starter, so then usually that default is at least him. Will he start? He probably might start as the starter next year. Does he end as the starter next year? I don't know. I think it's up for grabs. Again, Mitrovic coming back, loans, that type of thing. Caligari coming back. Whether or not you bring him back, whether you buy him out, I think the buyout was like $3 or $5 million. So it's extensive for a guy who just had a very big injury. And so do you bring him back? But that's a loan deal that's on there. Again, 17 of the 34 players up with options or other things. Some of those options will be picked up. Some of those options will not be picked up. I believe...
And we'll also learn, like we did last season, maybe there were some performance initiatives in there that triggered these options being, put on. I don't know if we'll know them, if it will be shared to us like Chicharito shared last season, but that could be a reason why, if there's someone who makes you scratch your head, why would they bring this person back? It could be a performance-based, thing. And especially with the amount of injuries that the Galaxy had in terms of minutes played or games played, it wouldn't shock me if someone who was maybe more on the fringe had something in there where if they play a certain amount of games that they were, guaranteed a contract because maybe they played more than they were expected to, or what their salary, dictated that was their role. So that could be something, to keep an eye on. With the amount of injuries, some player minutes and games played could be a factor in terms of whose option gets triggered.
Oh my God! Somebody, I love
breaking
this argument.
News?
No, there's not. I have one breaking news. It is very much the case that it looks like Cerrillo is going to sign a new deal. So if you're looking at Cerrillo as possibly one of those 17 that's up, expect him to be back. But somebody says, Gary says, no Mas Zavaleta. Where else are you going to get a backup that is, quite honestly, a decent backup for like $87,000? $87,000. The guy makes no money, and everybody just loves to crap on him.
Let's get someone else who makes no money.
I've
seen what I've needed to see. I guess he knows.
Bring in Tony Alfaro.
He knows the system.
Bring in Tony Alfaro. Oh wait, you did.
I don't know. Tony Alfaro wasn't it either.
Right, exactly. But that's the level you're getting. Don't expect that you're going to get Jalen Neal for $87,000, right?
Have we figured out AI? Can we get an AI center back? I think that's no. There's got to be a way around this.
Yeah, I mean, Mavinga at a higher salary is a much bigger thing that you could look at and say, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
that's
not
a big salary.
That's not money well spent.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, Zavaleta's money, whatever. People love to crap on that dude. And listen,
he's an easy target.
He is.
It's one of those. He's not as bad as I think people make him out to me, but he's not great.
No,
and I think being related to the coach doesn't do him any favors.
But he is good for El Salvador, which apparently he may not be playing for anymore. And
he was able to get on the score sheet. Yeah. That's something that you can't say for some players this season.
Scored 3 goals in one game. It was just one of them was against the Galaxy. So. That's okay. All right, let's get to, let's see. We got end of year voting, mini pitch. That's good. Douglas Costa, I think we talked about, his agent was talking about how, he's free to go at, because his contract's over at 12/31. talk to people. There very much was a thing in there where if Costa probably could have found a place to play in Brazil before the season, which looked like it might happen last season, that he was going to go. I think we can sort of almost say that that's what all of that was about.
Yeah.
We didn't know. So Costa coming back seems unlikely. I don't think that's happening.
I'm not familiar with what his agents. So I didn't catch that news story. Do you know some more specifics about saying the contract expires at 12/31? What was he?
This is the
exact quote.
This is the
the
translation. The translation. Good morning, everybody. As the sole legal representative of the athlete Douglas Costa, I hereby clarify some facts in the press yesterday. Douglas and/or I do not have any meeting scheduled or anticipated with Gremio Football. Regarding the mentioned debt, which should be confidential, the obligation to pay the installments in January of 2023 with no payments being made, installments on said debt to date. I have no idea what they're talking about on that, so I can't.
But it also mentions Gremio, which is his past club,
right.
So maybe there's...
Did he owe them money? Like, or did they
would
owe
you be
him
shocked
money?
If
maybe they
it sounds
owe him
like
money.
they owed him money, or
right.
Yeah.
Okay. The obligation to pay in installments January of 2023, which was last year, because that's January is now January. So anyway, the clause on returning to a Brazilian club extends until 12/31/2023, following the term of his current contract, with no clause after that date. I clarify the necessary facts so that the fans and the press know the correct information. I reiterate Douglas Costa's unconditional respect for Gremio Football, technical committee, athlete, staff, and its loyal fans. We are at your entire disposal for any questions. So I have no idea.
So it sounds like there was a clause in his contract where
there wasn't. This is what I'm telling you after this is that there was no contract for him. There was no clause for him to return to Brazil.
I think it sounds like when he left Gremio that he could not join another Brazilian club.
Maybe
until after, so something on the Brazil side, not necessarily the Galaxy side.
That makes more sense than anything else, right? Because I don't know how to translate. That's much more sense. I like your idea way better.
It sounds like Gremio is like he can go somewhere else, but he can't come back to. He can go anywhere else in the world, but he can't come back to our league until after this amount of time.
Which again is his contract is up. He's still getting paid by the LA Galaxy. He's not going anywhere. All right. So anyway, so that's there and that's done. All right, let's talk about Dallas, and then we'll sort of let everybody go for the night. If you're looking at the standings over on the Eastern Conference, basically, I love. This is so MLS. I love that DC is above the line but is eliminated and they can't finish there, right?
That is funny. Yeah.
It is so MLS, right? The whole deal. So DC in that 9th spot can't finish there. Cannot stay there. They are done. They don't have any more games. Nothing's happened. I think they're the one who is out. Because we have 28 teams playing 14 games, 7-7 coming up, and there are 29 teams, and there's one team left out. It's DC. They've already played all 34 games.
They've played all their games, and someone is going to jump them. Yeah.
Somebody will jump them, right? New York City's still in the hunt. Chicago's still in the hunt. Charlotte's still in the hunt. New York City FC still in the hunt. Montreal not locked up. So the 8-9 spots in the Eastern Conference up for grabs with Montreal, New York, Chicago, Charlotte, and New York City all being in contention for those spots. So that's something you can watch. Those games, by the way, all kick off at 3 o'clock Pacific time. Every single game kicks off at the same time in the Eastern Conference, all at 3 p.m. You can watch them all. I imagine MLS will have its kick-around show, and you'll be able to watch all that, and it'll go through everything. A lot of interesting stuff. If you're a fan of the league, I would suggest you watch this weekend. This is one of those times where it's sort of like, okay, it's fun. It's fun to sort of see everything.
As a neutral, this is this is your time to do, MLS 360 to watch all the games happening.
Yeah, so the other thing that is going on is the Western Conference. Now, 7th, 8th, and 9th all up for grabs. The teams playing in that Portland, Dallas, San Jose, Kansas City, and Minnesota, right? So there are 3 spots for 5 teams. And there's a whole bunch of fun scenarios that we could go through to tell you all that. But basically, it's up to, Portland, Dallas, and San Jose really to screw things up in some of this in order to get themselves kicked out of these particular ones. Yes.
And I think while you have that screen pulled up, one of the most notable things about it is Kansas City and Minnesota play each other. So they're tied in the standings in 10th and 11th. So one of them has to get a result. The worst thing that they could do to each other is draw each other, because then they both go out if they draw each other. So that to me, if you're a neutral and you want to watch one game, that would be the game to watch, because you have both teams who need to, put it all out there if they want to make the playoffs.
They will have to do that, and it might be the most fun game to watch is sort of that Kansas City, Minnesota game, because they're just going to throw everything, which, by the way, may not mean anything if Portland, Dallas, and those guys sort of pull off the wins. Everybody has a scenario. You can go on to the MLS website. They will tell you Portland will clinch with a win versus Houston or all these other things, right? Dallas is the one that you want to watch. Dallas will clinch a berth in the 2023 MLS Cup playoffs if they win at LA. So the LA Galaxy doing anything, drawing Dallas or beating Dallas has
to create chaos.
Could create a lot of chaos. Dallas draw at LA and Portland lose versus Houston. Dallas draw on LA and San Jose lose or draw versus Austin, right? Or San Jose versus Austin and Dallas advantage in tiebreakers over San Jose, or Kansas City draw versus Minnesota. These are ands, and like some of these and things are just nuts and crazy. The really crazy ones is whenever you come down to Sporting Kansas City. Kansas City win versus Minnesota and Portland lose or draw versus Houston. Kansas City win versus Minnesota and San Jose lose draw versus Austin. Kansas City win versus Minnesota and Dallas lose or draw LA. This is the chaos maker that comes in if San Jose or Dallas lose or Portland lose, right?
This is, to repeat the favor to Sporting Kansas City, because I think they had that handball call or non-call that allowed RSL to sneak in. So I think this, if you're rooting, maybe you're rooting for SKC, to make a move there.
No, it makes a lot of sense to me. I was chewing ice. I apologize.
I was going to say, you did not like my take.
No, it was fine. Yeah. It was fine. I just wanted some ice. All games in the Western Conference kick off at 6. That includes the LA Galaxy. The 6 p.m. Start time, and I believe it's 6:09 p.m. is your kickoff time for all of these. So you are LA and Dallas coming up at that 6 p.m. and 6:09 p.m. kickoff time. The game is on Apple TV, MLS Season Pass. That's where you can find it. If you're looking at this, the LA Galaxy and Dallas, let's just face this. Dallas usually has the Galaxy's number. They have for a while. The Galaxy fact is that they have 39 wins. Dallas is 37 wins overall. In the overreaching depths of this rivalry or this matchup, really, the Galaxy have been more successful, just barely. And quite honestly, Dallas has been catching up at a rapid clip. Right?
Yeah.
So
in recent years, it's more heavily Dallas skewed. Yeah.
If you go back the last time they played in LA, it was a 3-1 loss for the LA Galaxy. That was in 2022, May of 2022. You go back earlier this season, and of course, the very first game of the season, the Galaxy scored first and then allowed 3 goals. 3-1 was the winner for Dallas in Dallas. So
I didn't appreciate that, by the way.
What?
So, that they lost while I went to go watch them. Yeah,
yes.
Come on.
I mean,
get it together.
They definitely didn't live up to their end of the stuff. If you're looking for referee, Victor Rivas is your guy. VAR is Alejandro Mariscal. Listen, I actually thought that they gave Rivas is one of the better referees, right?
I was gonna say he's a recognizable name. So the fact that he's in this game, one is interesting.
It means that there's something to this game, right? It's an important game to sort of watch, and so I think that Rivas is probably a good enough referee for this game.
And he has reffed more LA Galaxy games than any other team this season. So that is kind of interesting that he's getting the Galaxy draw.
Okay, I like it. I like it. People are like, no Ted Uncle? No, I don't know. No drunk uncle? No, that doesn't happen there. October is your thing. I sort of wanted to show the LA Galaxy and what they've done. They have not yet won a game in October. Maybe they close that out. Maybe they don't. We can talk about all the fun things that are sort of going on, but I'm going to click through them because there's only one thing that you really want to talk about, and that is Fan Appreciation Day and what happens in the record for the LA Galaxy and Fan Appreciation Day. I am going to tell you a story, and this story is that on Fan Appreciation Day, which we denote as the last home game of the season, all right? That is what Fan Appreciation Day is, because I'm not sure they called it that way back, but we tracked it all the way back to the very beginning. Okay?
There was always a thank you fans, thank you supporters, something, even if it wasn't called Fan Appreciation Day, this last game was always a farewell of sorts.
Right, or whenever there were playoffs, it was like, hey, this is a fun day. Yay, you're going to the playoffs. So Fan Appreciation Day. Overall, in the history of the LA Galaxy, they have 14 wins on the last home game of the season. They have 5 losses and 8 draws, an overwhelmingly positive result at the end of the season. However, since 2013, Fan Appreciation Day, they are 1 win, 3 losses, and 6 draws. The LA Galaxy really don't do well on Fan Appreciation Day, and the last time that they won was in 2017, Eric, Whenever we talked about the
What
worst,
a crazy of that. That's the year that they did it. Yeah.
that is the last time they won their Fan Appreciation Day game. A year that the Galaxy won the Wooden Spoon, and we're the worst team in Major League Soccer. That's the last time they won on Fan Appreciation Day. So does this denote to you that this should be a win because there's nothing to play for the LA Galaxy? I mean, it seems like in other times when they've been trying to do things, they haven't.
With the game on the line, we've seen the Galaxy fumble, quite a bit, and so that's the part that makes you nervous. But now maybe it's bizarro LA Galaxy time when now it doesn't matter most, that this is when they eke out the win. The part that just makes me the most nervous, you saw the scenario for Dallas, win and they're in. And for the Galaxy, where's the motivation? How do you get up for this game? Do you really – I don't mean this to sound disrespectful. Are you really going to go and put it all out there for the fans? I mean, is that really why you're going to do it?
Maybe.
I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's not. I don't know if that's in there for the LA Galaxy, and with the amount of injuries. Maybe if they wanted to, could they? That's a whole different question as well. If they wanted to do it, could they? We talked about the last few games. They may be out of horses. It may have all fallen apart. So even as much as they want to deliver for the fans, it may just not be there. They may run out of gas, and we could see FC Dallas, with a lot to play for and a hungry FC Dallas team try to get a win. They have some talented players on there with Velasco and Ferreira, where you can never count those guys out. So that makes me a little bit nervous for those who are going and want to end the season on a high note. It just makes me really nervous.
Yeah, I would point out that the LA Galaxy can finish above 13th place, Eric.
But why would they want to do that?
Why would they? I don't want that. That would be disrespectful the entire rest of the season. I want to create a shirt that says 13th, and mean it. And you can't do that if you finish in 12th. So we
need shirts. 13th place, 2023 LA Galaxy, and then on the back, I was there.
And I got this shirt. So really, if the Galaxy do want to win this game, they better make sure that Austin wins their game. That's all I'm saying, right? Which, by the way, just
totally plausible. And then you see San Jose drop out. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I'm rooting for. I am Team Chaos. I would like to see everything go sideways here down the end. Let's go to predictions guaranteed to be wrong.
I also have D ratings as well.
Oh yeah, go for why not?
If you wanted, the Galaxy are favored to win, 47.8% chance of winning, 25.8% chance of FC Dallas, and I think that takes into account their recent form, where FC Dallas just has not been able to get it done. They have, I think, 7 draws in their last 9 games, something crazy like that, and then so a 26% chance for a draw. So the Galaxy about a coin flip to win the game. If you're looking at the money line, FC Dallas at plus 175, LA Galaxy at plus 135. So you're getting positive money on both teams, which tells you Vegas is like, I don't know what the heck's going on here. Good luck. Figure it out. And then over under, they have at 3 goals, over 3 goals at minus 115, under 3 goals at minus 105. So, that's about where it's going to land if you're figuring
2-1
on betting how many goals are going to happen in this game for your guaranteed to be wrong prediction.
2-1, 2-1, 2-2. I mean, let's be. Here's the thing. I mean, there should be a bet on a Sebastian Lletget hat trick. I mean, certainly you have to look at Lletget.
I think he's been injured. I don't know if he's going to. Yeah, he hasn't been playing. Yeah.
His heart is injured after fumbling Becky G. That's
I was going to say, speaking of fumbling on decision day, Jesus, Sebastian Lletget, what? Get it? All time fumble. Poor guy.
I feel bad for him. I really do.
I feel bad for him as well. That's tough.
Have you ever seen anybody back their car into like a pole and you're watching it happen?
And
you're like, no, you don't want to do this.
That.
Stop.
Don't do that.
Stop. Oh, that's basically what we saw there.
Yeah, I do feel bad for him. That's the right feeling.
Is it? I mean, he also apparently cheated. So do I really feel that bad for him?
That's true. I guess I'm.
Am I team Sebastian or am I team Becky G? And I'm team Becky G.
I'm team Becky G. That's 9 times out of 9 times.
Yeah, the Becky G.
I know you thought I was going to say 10, but yeah, it's 9 times out of 9. So guaranteed to be wrong.
Go for it.
I'll kick it off. I think we're going to see another goal fest. I'm going to see. I know I'm nervous, but it's wacky. It's decision day. The Galaxy cause chaos. Galaxy win 3-2. Dejan Joveljic hat trick and takes the golden boot.
Here's I like it. By the way. I don't disagree with it. My heart tells me that I don't disagree with it. My mind tells me the Galaxy absolutely score first in this game. They are going to come out hot. It's just similar to the RSL game. They lose this game 3-1 easily. It's a repeat of the first game of the year. They're going to score first and then look completely unsorted for the rest of it. The only way the Galaxy survive this is if they score more than 2 goals in the first half. That's the only way. They have to score 3+ in the first half, and then they will somehow, as Dallas is clawing, as other results are coming in, as they're clawing
they're
in the
pushing,
last,
they're bombarding. Yeah,
the Galaxy need a 2-goal lead with 10 minutes left in order for them to survive it, because Dallas will just tear them apart. There's going to be goals. It's going to be wacky. I think there's going to be a lot of high pressure in this game.
Yeah.
This game will be a fun game to be at. I'm not suggesting that you should be happy of where the LA Galaxy are, but I think the Galaxy will be placed within this structure of chaos that really could cause a lot of problems. That being said, if Dallas scores in the first 5 minutes, the game will be over.
it's over.
It'll be
I like
it'll
where
just
you're
fold
going.
up.
But I also like the super hot take. The other bet is there will be a goal conceded in injury time. I like that.
Ooh,
Whether the Galaxy
yes.
are up 2-0 or 3-1,
right.
There's going to be a goal at the end of this game, because that's just how decision day rolls. That's how it goes down. So I do like that. I think that weird things will happen at the end of this game.
Chaos. Is
Team
all,
chaos.
Yeah, that's right. Jeff Goldblum would be very proud. Chaos. Have you ever heard of the chaos theory? Sorry, that's my Jeff Goldblum. It's not.
I was going to say
It's
Jeff
not
Goldblum. It needs some work. That's very specific. That's a tough. It's a tough putt.
You have to be more committed to it than I really wanted to be on the fly. So but we'll figure that out. All right. Anything else that you would like to share, sir?
No, I got nothing. Everyone who's heading out to the digs, enjoy your final farewell, the funeral, the LA Galaxy funeral. Wishing the best for everyone and hoping they have a great time out there.
All right. I think that's sort of where I'm at as well. I will be there at the game after a long day of driving trains. I will run out there. I will come home. I'll take a shower real quick. I'll scurry up to the digs. I'll be there for you guys. So I'll see you at halftime. Come visit me halftime. Top of section 108, bottom of the press box stairs. There will be a group of people there. You will find them. You will join us in our circle. We will talk about the LA Galaxy. We will give hugs and high fives on the way out, because we won't see each other for a little while, and that's okay. As I've told you before, eventually there's going to come a time when we miss soccer. It'll all come around. Next thing you know, we'll all be out in Coachella watching the LA Galaxy training. It's a circle. It happens round and round, up and down. And there will be lots of things that we get to sort of pay attention to in the off season. There'll be lots of podcasts to come up with as well.
I was going to say the brain trust at halftime could plan the end of the year banquet, the dinner. Yeah. That could be part of your discussion.
Yeah.
And I'll say this. I'll end it with this. The LA Galaxy are undefeated in 2024.
That's right. That's 100%. 100%.
It's true. It's a fact. I'm just hitting you with facts, folks.
That is absolutely a thing. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us as sort of the last game. See, we'll slip very quickly into like preseason 2024. It'll happen very rapidly. So just adjust for that, wear your speed tape, all that stuff. It's a little neck breaking sometimes to just go from end of season right onto it. We've done it before. We'll transition through it gracefully, I am sure. All right, Eric, tell people where they can find you. Let's go.
All right. As always, you can find me on everything at HammerEV9. That's on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. That's at HammerEV and the number 9.
All right. If you're looking for me, at Jay Guesman, at Galaxy Podcast on Twitter, at Galaxy Podcast on Threads, cornerofthegalaxy.com is there, and all of our YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that fun stuff. You can find us there. We'll work on that end of season banquet. We'll let you know when it is. All right. LA Galaxy, Dallas coming up on Saturday. Last game of 2023, Fan Appreciation Day. Oh, boy. Always fun to see sort of how that plays out. For Mr. Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching to our little Corner of the Galaxy. Take it away, Mr. Michael Araujo.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.